I mean, like, that's another thing about show business and living in America, or maybe even life, where you get opportunities from people and you're so thankful, but also they're awful. It's this weird amalgamation where you're taking the bad with the good, and I'm thankful to this man for offering me these shows, but he's also taking advantage of me, but also I need him, and also it was nice of him to reach out to me, and I want this job, but I feel so bad, and it's like this whole thing. And so he was my first agent, and then I got a writing agent, and then I bombed a audition for SNL, and my writing agent was like, "I'm never going to talk to you again."
You went to SNL to do
I didn't go there. I did an interview to be a writer, and then I got a call back, and they're like, "We love you. This is so great." And we talked for a while, and then they were like, "Write us two more things," and I wrote them 2 more things. But I was in the process. I had relationship problems at the time, and they were so devastating that I wrote the last thing I was supposed to write SNL an hour before it was due, and it was predictably bad.
Turns out. Now, is it true that SNL can take whatever you've sent them and use it for their own?
I don't think they're supposed to, but I've heard rumors they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, they crank out so much content, like it makes sense that they would. I mean, they should just pay and or credit people, I guess. I don't know, but I've heard rumors that this happens. I don't know for sure. But I have heard rumors from other comics and, of course, the internet that they just like take skits. I know for sure that they see like a TikTok sketch and they go, "Oh, this is a funny concept," and then they make it their own. Yeah. And people get mad at that, and I'm like, what? Who cares? Yeah. I don't know. That doesn't bother me, but...
So you decided you didn't want to be a writer. You kind of knew that, though, ahead of time? Or?
I want to be a writer, but writers' rooms are stacked with college graduates. It's kind of a club. And if you haven't graduated from college, you don't get to write. They're not going to hire you unless you know someone. And even then, they're usually going to pick the person with a college education over you. One of the reasons a lot of comedy shows are hot garbage, trash, is because their writers' rooms stacked with college graduates that aren't funny. They're not stand-ups. Yeah. It's insane not to hire. Hey, I'm professionally funny. People literally pay to see what I wrote. I perform it. Can I please write on your TV show or your cartoon or whatever? Nah, I'm going to hire this guy from Harvard who has a creative writing background. I think he's silly. And you're like, okay, well, your show sucks and everyone hates it, and it did 1 season and is bad, so cool.
Yeah, no, I don't like SNL. I don't watch it. People sometimes tell me about something and I watch it and I go, I can see why that's funny, but if you ever say that, it's not funny.
Yeah.
And then I try to watch the things that my wife watched growing up, but it's almost like the time has passed, and I mean, it's a different generation now, so I don't really find that funny either. I can appreciate certain characters, but I don't really find
I think some guests are good. Yeah. I've seen SNL do well. I'm not a huge fan, but if anyone from SNL is watching, I do want a job and I actually love the show. And if I was on it, I would honor, I mean, but for real though. Yeah. But yeah, I would like to write because stand-up comedy and touring is like so stressful, so much travel, so difficult, very lonely, very lonely. And then, it's also like, am I going to have money this year? How much am I going to perform? I got to get this. How much are flights going to be? Like there was 1 year, like last year, flights were like 3 times what they were in 2021 or whatever. It's so like now I've lost tens of thousands of dollars flying all over. Yeah. So that's going to affect my bottom line. So when you write, you have a salary and health insurance and you have a schedule. And you're working on your terms.
I would think that comedians would get paid a decent amount of money to come and perform.
They can.
Yeah.
I do often.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I do often, but like there's still, even when you have a lot of money or you're making a lot of money or you're doing well, the bottom can fall out like that. It could all be over tomorrow for me. You know what I mean? I'm very aware of that.
Why?
It happens. It just happens to comics. You know, I could fall out of favor for some reason.
Is it Dane Cook? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Amy Schumer, Dane Cook. And some of these people fell out when they were so famous and rich that it didn't matter. But it can happen. I know comics who tour who don't tour anymore. They just kind of had people stop going to their shows over time, and they just stopped doing as well. And then they just kind of do other stuff.
So now Amy Schumer, I thought was just awful. Whenever she would do stand-up, I would cringe and would stop it almost immediately because it wasn't funny at all, and it was like 5 seconds before she's talking about her genitals. Why did she fall out of favor, though?
I think the Dane Cook reason. I just think she just got out of touch. She just became out of touch.
Didn't Dane Cook get accused of joke stealing? Wasn't that a...
Everyone has been. That's famous. I mean, Amy got accused of joke stealing. I think people proved she stole jokes. Pretty decisively. Okay. I think that's like a non-negotiable. That's like a reality. So, it's just weird. I think she fell out of... You begin to perform for your audience over and over again, and you can fall out of touch. And there's also, I think, an amount of humbleness you need to maintain.
Okay.
That comics, they start to fall out of that, and they start to wear their own merch and believe in their own story, and everyone around them becomes afraid to criticize them. And, that happens to famous people. That's a trap you can fall into. It's incredibly dangerous. And if all your friends are comics, that's bad. You need to live... Pete Holmes said something that stuck with me when I was a very young comic. He said, you should live a life worth commenting on.
Oh, that's good.
And my comedy is very autobiographical. So that's
you have a lot to comment on.
Totally
You get
important.
to open up a world that very few, well, maybe more than we think, but a lot of people wouldn't have any access to.
I think so. And in my comedy, especially, it's cool that I can talk about like some wild story. And then, a housewife is like, well, that appeals to me because I have had a time where I was this crazy person or this adversity in my life or whatever, and I overcame it, and I see myself in you, and it's like inspirational. And I'm like, well, that's an unintended consequence of me trying to make you chuckle. Cool.
I forget who it was who said he likes comedians. I think it may have been... Oh, who's the black hilarious comedian who just did a special?
Well, you're describing a lot of guys.
And offended the trans community.
Chappelle, Dave Chappelle.
He's brilliant. And he said something, I think it was him, it might not be, but he said, I like comedians who make you feel like everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And like Norm was like that, right? Like you would listen to him and you would laugh and you'd like, okay, things are going to be okay. And I think Chappelle's like that.
I think Mulaney is a really good example of that, John Mulaney.
So, okay, what do you think it takes to be... Is there a certain theme among bad comedians? You're like, they all kind of exhibit this?
Inauthenticity.
Okay.
Inauthentic. You need to be authentic, because that's why hacky comedians get famous. That's why you can watch a bad comedian do well. Very often, that's their authentic self. And people naturally gravitate towards authenticity. So if you're a cornball, goofy, dad joke, bad comedy guy, and you see someone else authentically doing that, that's your guy. I don't like him. I'm never going to name names. But like, I don't like him. I think he's corny and bad. I think that comedy sucks.
Okay, yeah.
But that's authentic. He's authentic.
He's not
to
trying
himself.
to sound like somebody else.
Exactly. Or I would say that every once in a while someone inauthentic slips through, because show business is evil and so much of it is nepotism. And if there are times when they decide you're famous before you're famous, and they make it happen.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so that's a problem with any like sort of political type of organization. Not politics in terms of any group you're in or any community you're a part of.
Yeah.
So
there's a fella who I find hilarious on Dry Bar called Chad Thornsberry. And maybe that's, I don't know who you're referring to or not. But like,
no.
But the fact that he is just himself, he doesn't seem like he's trying to be somebody else, and he's just downright hilarious, and he doesn't kind of dress up for the event. He dresses like he seems like he would dress. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. I used to dress up. I used to wear a collared shirt and sort of just try to like take the edge off of how I look.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I would have a dress shirt. I would bring an outfit for the show. And I had one day where I just said, nah, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I just, whatever I'm in that day, I'll perform in pajamas if that's what I was wearing before. I don't care. And I realized that authenticity is a non-negotiable part of being truly funny.
Yeah, because it's your authentic self that's relatable. If you're trying to appease everybody, you're not relating to anybody, and 100%. You just seem boring.
And then it's the worst comics look like a guy doing impression of what he thinks a comic is like.
Excellent.
Yeah, you don't like that. And I think that even people subconsciously pick up on that.
Could you imagine trying to be Norm Macdonald? Like trying to...
People do it. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.